Hello, and thank you for exploring Lakehead International's videos. My name is Jordan, and I am the International New and Social Media Officer. I'm also the host of the Lakehead International Live series, a fun and informative way for you to connect with current international students, professors, and ask questions about admissions and everything Lakehead. You are about to watch a recording from one of our previous live sessions. If any questions arise throughout the video, please do not hesitate to comment below. If you would like to check out some of our upcoming live sessions, please head over to our website at lakeheadu.ca/international-live. Let's begin. So today we will be chatting about applying for your student visa. My name is Jordan, I'll be your host today. I'm also joined by Patrick and Jennifer, our co-hosts, and we'll be chatting all about applying for your student visa, what that process looks like, and just getting you started on that process sooner than later. We'll be chatting all about the importance of getting it started as soon as possible, as soon as you receive that offer from Lakehead University. Before we do that, though, we have a few things to cover. I'll introduce myself, and then we'll go down the line essentially. So for those of you who haven't joined a live webinar before, my name is Jordan Ball. I am an International New and Social Media Officer. I help run our live events and our digital experiences. I also run our social media channels and the Global Ambassador program here on campus. Next, I'll pass over to Patrick, who will introduce himself.
Hi, Jordan. Good morning and good afternoon or good evening to all of our students joining us from around the world. My name is Patrick Carr. I am one of the international recruitment officers here at Lakehead University. I primarily work with students out of the Middle East as well as Africa. However, I'm happy to be here today to answer any Lakehead related questions that you might have. So I look forward to chatting with you as we go through the presentation.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us, Patrick. So of course, for our students that might have questions related to the admissions process, to your journey to Lakehead, all that sort of stuff, Patrick will be here to answer those either behind the scenes or live. But next I'll pass it over to Jennifer to introduce herself.
Thanks, Jordan, and welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Jennifer Hay, and I am the International Immigration Advisor with Lakehead University. So I'm on the call today to talk about applying for the study permit and answer any immigration questions you guys have. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us, Jen. We're really excited to chat about this topic. I know it's a popular one for many students. Before we get started, though, we'll chat about today's agenda and what we're going to cover. We have plenty to cover in the next hour. So upcoming events, I'll chat about those, and so you know where the series are going. We have the Lakehead Explored series and the Academics Explored series. I'll chat about all of that. And then we'll dive into the status of your Lakehead application and what that represents in your application to apply for your study permit and what process you need to complete. Then we'll chat about the next steps, your conditional offers, biometrics, medical exams, program end date, co-op, internships and employment, processing time, passport expiry, and accompanying family members. So there are definitely quite a few topics that we want to cover today. And so we'll begin by chatting about upcoming events. Within the Academics Explored series, we're going to be chatting with some departments and some different programs in the next few months. And so this week we'll be chatting with engineering. We actually have the new Dean of the Faculty of Engineering joining us, as well as a number of his colleagues. So we're excited to learn more about those programs and hear about the first year experience. He'll be joining one of our engineering programs, either undergraduate or graduate this fall. I encourage you to register for this session and learn more about the faculty itself, but also begin to meet some of those familiar faces. If you're joining computer science or biology, you also have sessions coming up for the next few weeks. If you want to see our full schedule, you can head over to lakeheadu.ca/international-live, and you can also register on that link too. As a part of the Lakehead Explored series, so every Monday we're live. Next week we'll be doing a next steps in the admissions process webinar, where we're going to chat all things after you receive that offer. What are your next steps? And then of course we're going to dive into how you can stay connected with us over the next few months as you prepare for your journey to Canada. After that, we'll be doing a careers, co-op, and employment session on Monday, March 29th, and then other sessions upcoming, including getting involved in student life, student supports, residence and dining, and of course, another applying for your student visa. We'll be doing this once each month until May, I believe it is, so that you have multiple opportunities to join. So although today we hope that we can cover all of your questions as well as just give you a better idea about securing that study permit, if in a month's time you're ready, if you've received that offer, you've received that extra required documentation, you're ready to apply but want to get a refresher, you can join us again for sure. Things to remember: if you like what you see, don't worry, we are recording today's session and we'll be putting it up on our YouTube channel after the fact. If you're watching this as a recording, thank you for joining us. We're excited to have you. If you do have questions today, whether it's live right now on Zoom, you can use the Q&A function. If it's after the fact on our YouTube channel, you can certainly comment on that video too, and we'll be happy to answer. And last but not least, I encourage you to stay connected with us. Follow us on our social media channels. You can like or follow our Facebook page, our Instagram, our YouTube. You can subscribe to all of these different social media platforms. Will give you an insider sneak peek into the university, but also provide you more information about how to stay connected and learn about upcoming events with Lakehead International. Without further ado, though, we'll dive into today's presentation. First, we'll start off with chatting about the status of your Lakehead application. And so for those of you who don't know whether you have applied to an undergraduate program or a graduate program, you can actually monitor your Lakehead University application status on your MyInfo account. MyInfo is your student portal online, and you can monitor that application status under the applicant tab. It's located in slightly different places, whether you're an undergraduate student or a graduate student. If you need those resources or if you need help, please don't hesitate to connect with us at welcome@lakeheadu.ca. Or if you access our website, there are online resources to check in the status of your application. Speaking of statuses though, in today's session where we talk about getting ready to apply for your study permit and getting that visa ready, we want to make sure that you know exactly what statuses or what type of Lakehead offers you'll need. If your status currently resides in admitted conditionally, admitted or eligible to register, you are eligible or you can proceed to the application for your study permit or your student visa. If you're admitted conditionally, that does mean that we still need some final documents from you, and it is a conditional offer. So you must meet certain requirements to maintain that offer. If you've been admitted, so the code is ADM, you've been admitted with no conditions, or we like to call it an unconditional offer letter. That means that there are no additional requirements unless otherwise stated, of course. If you're eligible to register, or ELI, that means that our course registration has opened and you are now eligible to register for those courses. And of course, you are only ever given that status if you have an offer from Lakehead University. So those are sort of the three statuses that provide you the opportunity to proceed with the application for your student visa. If your status is incomplete, your application is incomplete and we need more information. If it's pending, your application is complete, but the decision has not been yet reached, or the application has been refused, we're asking that you hold off on any applications for your student visa. This is, of course, if you've been refused, you do need an eligible offer letter from a designated learning institution within Canada to apply for that study permit or student visa. If it's pending, it simply means that we have not received, or pardon me, have not made a decision on it, and we hope to make that soon, so don't worry. You can always ask our admissions teams directly for updates as well. So with that being said, if you are on the left-hand column and you're ready to proceed for your application, congratulations. Congratulations on receiving an offer from Lakehead University. This is a very exciting time for you. We're excited to have you join us here at Lakehead, hopefully in the near future. And with that being said, we'll be able to chat now about applying for your student visa. And the first thing I want to ask is, I'm going to launch a poll actually. So for our students and our guests, my poll is, what level of study are you pursuing? So we have undergraduate, which is your bachelor's. We have graduate, which is your master's and PhD. And we have academic English program, which is our English language program. So I'll give it a few moments here to see sort of the votes roll in. And it looks like we have quite a few people on graduate side, a number on undergrad, and a few on academic English. So it's a nice spread here. I would say that graduates taking the cake today though, They might be beating out undergraduate, but that's okay. The information we're going to talk about today covers essentially for all levels of study. As long as you're joining us here in Canada for over 6 months, you're going to want to learn about today's session. Alrighty, so I'll wrap this poll up. I'll launch the results so everyone can see. We had 11 votes, 25% of them in bachelor's or undergraduate. We had 32 votes or 73% for graduate, master's, PhD. We had 1 vote in academic English program. So thank you to all of our attendees for joining us. We're really excited to get going here. And so with that being said, we'll chat about the next steps. So you've received that offer from Lakehead. You've received either you've been admitted conditionally and it's a conditional offer letter. You've been admitted with no conditions, so it's an unconditional offer, as I like to say, or you're eligible to register. You've received that offer and now you can actually get those courses filled in. On a note with that, registration for fall 2021 and winter 2022 typically will not open until the end of June, if not the beginning of July. You will receive plenty more information from our teams and our departments here at Lakehead, so don't stress about that. Now we want to focus on your student visa. So your next steps do include applying online from outside of Canada, making an IRCC account, gathering the required documents, and then preparing your entry requirements. And of course, there's a sample of your student visa there, or your study permit on the right. It's just that though, a sample. It may have changed over the last couple of years, or it might differ just slightly. But I'm going to pass it over to Jen, who's going to chat first about applying online from outside of Canada and those steps involved.
Thanks, Jordan. Again, congratulations on your acceptance to Lakehead University. And of course, because of delays in study permit processing, we recommend starting your visa process as soon as you get that letter of acceptance. So how do you apply for a study visa for the first time? You're going to apply online from outside of Canada. You can follow these quick steps here, making sure that you have what you need. So you must be able to have scanned documents. Of course, Lakehead University will issue the receipts and your letter of acceptance in digital copies. So those are already good to go, but also scanned copies of your other documents required. Make sure that you're ready to answer the questions in the online tool. Noting the fees that you must pay. So a study permit application is $150, and you may also be subject to biometric fees. And then of course, the first step is going online and creating your account.
And so with that being said, of course, that includes also making an IRCC account. And Jen will clarify the 2 ways you can register essentially for one of these accounts.
Right. So on the IRCC website, you can either register for a GC key or use what's called the partner sign-in. The partner sign-in is using your Canadian online bank account to access it. So likely most of the new applicants will be using the GC key. When you go to the sign-in page, it will look just like this. So you will go to the right side and sign up. You will create a username and password, along with some security and submission questions. My recommendation to you is to please write down your username and password, take screenshots of your questions for recovery, as locking yourself out of this account or trying to guess the password will cause you many issues in the future.
Awesome. I think that's some sound recommendations. I encourage anyone to write down their usernames and passwords also to their MyInfo account. I know that's a popular one that students don't always access right off the bat. And then they're looking, a few weeks after applying, they're like, oh my gosh, what's my application status? And they go to look, but they don't have their information anymore. So I would also encourage, definitely write that sign-in information down.
So next, you're going to want to start to gather your documents. The first document, as we talked about, is your letter of acceptance to Lakehead University. For those of you taking the English for Academic Purposes, the AEP program, you're going to actually include your offer letter, the conditional offer to your degree, along with your AEP acceptance. And if anyone has any questions on how to do this, usually you will actually give your undergraduate or graduate offer where it shows conditions that you must take the English program. And then you will get a separate acceptance from Crystal that you can upload in your client information to show that you're doing that condition. But again, if there's any specific questions about the AEP, I can talk to you after the session. But hopefully you have an unconditional letter of acceptance to Lakehead University. And the way you can check this is through the remarks in your offer letter will state this is conditional based on blah, blah, blah. So just make sure you're reading that over. After the letter of acceptance, you want to have a copy of your passport. This is the bio page, the front page showing that you have a valid passport. Immigration cannot issue any permits beyond your passport expiry. So please make sure your passport's not expiring. And the last one is your financial support. This can be a combination of many different documents. It can be your bank statements, can be any tuition payments made to Lakehead University, any loan or scholarship, or even financing from your parents.
Awesome. And I think a note here, Jen, is with that proof of identity in the passport, I want to make it extra clear for our audiences that if your passport is expiring maybe in potentially a year's time, but you have an unconditional offer to your undergraduate degree, the Canadian government and immigration will only be able to provide you that study permit for the length of that passport. Is that correct? In saying that although they might be able to in theory, get approved for a 4-year permit because of their passport expiry, they'll actually only get the 1 year, and then they'll have to apply actually 1 year into their studies at Lakehead. So if you have the opportunity to just renew your passport now, maybe get a 5-year passport, a 10-year passport even, it should be a simpler process coming down instead of having to renew inside of Canada. Would that be correct in saying so?
Definitely, Jordan. And it's very time consuming and expensive. Students right now, because of COVID delays and the high commissions or embassies being closed, sometimes are even here without a passport right now. So if you have the opportunity to renew your passport before you come, please do so. It will save you lots of time and travel and fees. And again, once you extend the passport, you must extend all your immigration stuff, which of course costs more fees. So Jordan is correct. Please make sure that you do come with a passport as long as you can. Say your passport expires in 2 years and you're in a 4-year program, it's likely too early to renew your passport now. So don't fret. In 2 years from now, when you do have the new passport, you will just meet with me when you're here in Canada or abroad, and I will help you extend that work study permit.
Awesome. Thanks for clarifying. So next we'll chat about entry requirements, and I'll pass it back to you.
So along with a permit allows you to actually work, study, or visit and will be issued at the port of entry. But to enter Canada, you must have either a temporary residency visa, a TRV, or an electronic travel authorization. And depending on what country you're from will determine what one you will apply for. I would say 80% of our students are coming from TRV countries. And when you apply for your study permit, you will be asked to send your passport to the nearest visa center for stamping. So this stamping in your passport is called the TRV. And you must have a valid TRV to enter Canada, and then obviously the permit to study or work. Some countries are visa exempt, and you can easily review this on the IRCC website. And you only need to get an ETA. So these are countries like Taiwan, Mexico, the United States, many European countries. You can actually just go online to the IRCC website. You pay a nice low fee, I believe, of $7, and you will get an ETA that's valid with your passport. And you will use that to enter to come into Canada. The nice thing about the ETA is that you don't have to mail your passport anywhere, and it's approved within 24 hours. So it's quite quick.
Awesome. And so on that note, of course, as you start to understand the process of especially getting in a TRV, a temporary residency visas, the fact that you do have to mail out your passport to get that stamping. And so you can start to imagine that sending that via mail and getting it to the visa office and then getting it back is a time-consuming process. And so that's why I think that Jennifer, myself, any one of us on the international team can't stress enough how important it is to apply for your student visa and your study permit sooner than later, or as soon as possible. So when you get that offer letter from Lakehead, that letter of acceptance, we encourage that then you sit down and you genuinely start to consider, is it time to apply? If it's a conditional offer, we understand that you might want to hold off. Chat with us directly though, chat with us and say, I have a conditional offer, here are my conditions. when do they typically get waived, or when can I meet them? When will I satisfy them? If you're a student who's going to be satisfying those conditions in June or even July, that would only leave you roughly a month and a half to then apply for your permits and whatnot. And so at that point, we would certainly recommend using your conditional offer to apply. If you'll be meeting those requirements in the next couple of weeks and maybe getting another letter updated, then we might suggest you hold off. But it's very important that you begin the process sooner or later, because there is definitely some lengthy areas to it. So next we'll chat about actually conditional offers. If I had just clicked for the next slide, we could have dove right into it. But Jen, I know that you cover it very nicely too. So I'll pass it over to you to chat.
Yeah, and that's a really important part right now, Jordan, because for example, in China, the passport stamping is over 100 days right now. So there are very lengthy delays as we are just seeing the visa application centers open up. And there are preference of orders of who gets permits stamped first. So please allow yourself some time. So if you are from China, you may be considering using your conditional letter of acceptance to apply. Of course, as Jordan mentioned, if you are going to meet those conditions within the next few weeks, I would wait until you have that unconditional offer and then start the study permit process. But if you are thinking another 4 weeks, 6 weeks till you meet your conditions, or even in the summer, then I would suggest applying for your study permit now. In the study permit application, you will submit the conditional offer. And there's always a spot called client information where you're allowed to include additional details. So I'm going to use the example of finishing high school. You are now in your final semester of grade 12. You have a conditional offer to a bachelor program in September. You apply now with your study permit, and you would include a letter explaining you are in your final semester of your high school, and give proof of that, your transcript or a letter from your high school showing that you're in your last semester and when you will complete. Note in your letter of explanation that you will update your study permit file once you meet that condition. So later on, the summer comes, finish high school, submit that to Lakehead, and they release all those conditions. Then now you register for your classes. Then you're going to send IRCC in a web form. And on this web form, you will show you have now met your conditions and registered for classes. So they are satisfied that you have now met that, but this whole time your study permit has been processed. Then you're looking at an approval closer to July and August instead of later in the semester, where it can be a little bit more risky to study. So I know this can be a confusing area, but of course, we always, if you have a complicated situation or if you're unclear at all, feel free to reach out to me for further advice.
Awesome. And this is a perfect segue actually into a question from Sita. It says, where is it mentioned in the offer letter if they're admitted or conditional? And so in the actual notes of the offer, it will specifically state if you are required to meet certain conditions by a deadline. So there will always be a deadline on an offer, whether it's a deadline to accept the offer or it's a deadline to meet your conditions. If you are an undergraduate student, so again in high school and your final year and you're preparing to join an undergraduate program, our undergraduate admissions team typically has a deadline of mid-July. I could be mistaken, so I don't speak. That's not an answer for all offers. You need to refer to your individual, your unique offer for every single date and detail. I can't speak broadly like that. If you're a graduate student, that fluctuates, of course. And so that you could potentially be wrapping up your undergrad here in the next month or two. And then there are certain areas of the offer where you can actually satisfy them once you arrive on campus, for example, or even later into the summer, they'll accept documents. Again, though, I encourage you to reference your own individual offer letter and confirm the exact details. And like I said, it will simply state that you do need to meet X, Y, and Z conditions by this deadline. And that's how you know you have a conditional offer letter. If it doesn't say any of that, you can safely assume that you have an unconditional. If you need clarification, I don't want anyone to think that they can't reach out to us. Absolutely, please connect with us, whether it's welcome@lakeheadu.ca, undergraduate admissions, graduate admissions, any one of us can clarify a little more about your offer letter. So with that being said, we'll move into biometrics, which is another part of the process, and Jen will chat about that.
Thanks. Biometrics is the collection of your fingerprints and eye scan. It's done for security purposes for visa processing. In 2019, IRCC has expanded their collection and now collect biometrics for almost all of applicants coming to Canada. Once you make your application to come for the study permit, there will be a question asking, have you ever completed your biometrics before? If you have done biometrics within the last 10 years, you can say yes, and that's great news for you. However, if you haven't, you will say no, and you will see the $85 biometric fee be added to your fees at the end when you pay. Once you submit your application online, within a week or so, you should receive a biometric request. And please note, there are delays in certain countries, so you may have to wait for that appointment to be scheduled, usually maybe within the month. And then your biometrics is automatically sent to IRCC from the Visa Center, and you will see that updated on your account.
Awesome. And so in connection to our previous slide about conditions being fulfilled, we do have a question that said, what happened if a student does not fulfill a condition at the end of the period? They didn't clarify, but I'm assuming so. You've applied to maybe your study permit or for a study permit, pardon me, and you use that conditional offer letter, and then unfortunately you're not able to satisfy the admission requirements or the conditions on your offer letter from Lakehead, and so you no longer have that offer with Lakehead. Jen, what happens for students that are in that process and then in the middle of the process they are no longer eligible to join a university?
Well, you have to be a registered student to be able to enter Canada. So even if the study permit was approved, you wouldn't be able to come to Canada. So normally what happens if you don't meet conditions or if your admission is revoked, you would send IRCC an update, and you can either withdraw your application for the study permit, or you obviously would defer your admission, get a new letter of acceptance, and update your file that way as well.
And so for those students that may happen to, I certainly encourage you to connect directly with our admissions team so that you can learn more about what the next steps are and how you can satisfy those conditions, whether you can defer that offer like Jen had mentioned. And if that's the case, then you'll definitely want to chat with us more about submitting any sort of web forms to IRCC so that they also are fully aware of your current status and what your plans are set forth. So next we'll chat about medical exams, and I'll pass back to Jen.
Thanks, Jordan. This is another one that's country specific. So again, depending on what program you're studying and what country you're coming from, you may be requested to do a medical. You do not have to do a medical exam in advance. You will get the request through your IRCC account and normally get about 90 days to complete that request. Some students or some countries or agencies know that it's required for their country, so they will tell students to kind of book that appointment and get it done. If you have the medical done in advance, that's fine. It is good for up to 2 years, so then you can upload it to IRCC. Sorry, 1 year. 1 year for medical exams, they're good. So if you've had one done within the last year, and of course it has to be an IRCC panel physician, you would just upload that within your file.
Awesome. So next we'll chat about program end date, which is, I know, a popular one, and it also helps make the process a little more simple once you arrive on campus if you do need to apply for any extensions.
Yes, you will note on our letters of acceptance, they usually will say this is a 2-year program or a 4-year program, but they don't specifically note the end date. So I actually get quite a few questions from students after they're accepted, and they're not sure what to put as the program end date on their study permit application. So for us, our graduation dates are always in May and in November. So you want to make sure you have a couple extra months to apply for your work permit. For example, if you're starting in a 1-year master's program that starts fall 2021, your program would technically end in August and you would graduate in November 2022. So then we always say to put that December date, so it gives you an extra time to apply for your work permit. Using the August and the December end dates are usually good for you. Of course, our undergraduate programs always end in April. Well, not, I guess, always, depending on what intake you start, but usually graduate in the spring. So putting that April 30th date is fine for that. Or if you're a winter start, December. So please note, you can easily do the math with your program of study. Just trying to anticipate that what it does is it avoids you having to extend your study permit in the future and pay additional fees for that.
Awesome. Thanks for clarifying. So next we're going to chat about co-op internships and employment, and more specifically, you're going to chat about them. So I'll pass it over to you.
So a lot of Lakehead programs have internships or work components, which are very different than co-op. So co-op is actually a work term where it's a full 4 months or 8 months within your program of studies. So first, I'm going to mention the undergraduate programs. Our undergraduate programs with co-op, this is mentioned directly on your letter of acceptance. You will see it on the first page where it says Bachelor of Engineering with co-op. And when you apply for the study permit, you can actually upload a second copy of this letter of acceptance as your proof of work in your studies. For our master's students, you have to finish your first year and actually be eligible for co-op. So later on, once you're a registered student, you will receive a co-op letter of acceptance, and then you can apply for the co-op work permit separately. We do encourage applying for that early as well. You do get accepted about 1 term before your co-op starts, so please make sure you apply right away. And there's no fee for a co-op work permit.
Awesome. And also, Jen, for students that are looking to potentially work part-time while they're studying, which is absolutely an opportunity when studying in Canada, and I know that that's a popular choice for many students. Do you have any recommendations for students? Do they need to submit an additional application? Do they need to apply for an additional permit to work when they study? Could you clarify that?
For sure, really good question. So once you enter Canada, you'll be issued that study permit that we showed you at the port of entry. And on your study permit is where they actually will give you the on and off campus work eligibility. So right then at the airport, you can check the bottom of your study permit remarks and ensure that it says that you can work on and off campus. Those of you coming to the English language program will not be able to work until you actually start your full-time studies. To be able to work in Canada, you must be a full-time post-secondary student. So masters and PhD students are always considered full-time. And then undergraduate students must take 4 FCEs or 3.75 or higher throughout your academic year to be considered full-time. You can always check your MyInfo enrollment letter to ensure you're a full-time student, or contact me if you have any questions about that. But maintaining your full-time status keeps you eligible to work off campus, as well as eligible to work or apply for a post-grad work permit when you graduate.
Awesome. And for those students who might be wondering, what are the processes like for getting jobs in Canada? Are there additional steps with the Canadian government that I need to complete? We actually host regular workshops, especially in those first few orientation weeks, we like to call them, where you'll be able to get your SIN number, which is the number that will allow you to actually get a job here in Canada and get paid and whatnot. As well, we definitely have some resume workshops so that when you're going out to apply, we make sure that your resume is nice and polished and hopefully you stand out for the applications. But there are a lot of assistance here on campus to getting that employment. So next we'll chat about processing times, and we do have an example here. I'll let Jen chat about this, but again, just to remind our audience that this was a screenshot as of a few days ago, and so it may have changed for Brazil, but I definitely encourage students to check no matter what for their own country anyways.
Yes, and processing times change all the time. So students say, well, when I applied, it was 10 weeks. Unfortunately, it's going to be by whatever the processing time is for today. So there is a way, as you can see in the screenshot here, you will pick what you're applying for and where you're applying from, and it will give you an idea of how long the processing is. I believe right now in India, the processing is around 10 weeks and a little bit longer in China because of the visa stamping. So please, again, give yourself plenty of time to apply. I can't tell you how many students will wait till the end of the summer to apply, and then they're stressed and anxious and worried about the processing while their classes have already started. So now is a great time to apply for the fall term. I know the acceptance are starting to go out for students. So if you have the unconditional offer, there's absolutely no reason to delay your study visa application.
Awesome. So next, I'm just going through the questions here. We'll definitely get to some of these questions towards the end of the session where we have a dedicated period, but Jen, we'll chat about passport expiry. I know we prefaced this already, but it can't hurt to remind our viewers again.
Yeah, so as you said, we've talked about this, but again, checking that passport expiry date. If your passport is expiring within the next 6 to 8 months, definitely need to renew it before you even start this whole process. As we know, it's going to take about 4 months for all the processing to go through. So please ensure you can contact your consulate or embassy in your home country or the visa processing in your city. If you are in Canada and need to renew your passport, you have to do it actually with your embassy or high commission. And normally this means you have to travel to Ottawa, to our capital, to meet them in person. Again, it can be very costly and time consuming. So please try to renew that passport before you even start your application.
Awesome, thank you. And another question we have here is accompanying family members. And so I'll have a poll. I'll launch the poll now while you work through this slide first, and then I'll share the results after.
Sounds good. It's always nice to see who's coming with family members. So please answer us in the poll if you're bringing any your spouse, children with you, which are considered dependents in your application. And Canada has a great program. We love keeping family together. When you come to study in Canada as a full-time student, your dependents are eligible to accompany you. So what this means is that your spouse can either come on an open work permit or a visitor visa. No job offers required. It's just the fact that you are in a relationship and the fact that your study permit has been approved. So they can stay in Canada for the same length of time as you. Children are eligible to come on study permits or visitor visas, just depending on the age, you might consider one or the other. And of course, if you're attending Lakehead University, your children actually can attend the elementary schools in Thunder Bay at no extra cost for you. So a really cool program. Dependents, you just add them into your application initially, or sometimes students decide to bring your family members afterwards. Either way, I'm here to support your family applications as well, along with their extensions when they're here in Canada with you.
Awesome. So I'm just about to share the results here. So we actually, I'm surprised about the number of folks on today's session that are planning on bringing dependents. Typically we see a smaller percentage, but hey, that's no problem. We're excited to have you bring a dependent with you. So we'll chat about that in more depth too, and we can certainly even consider hosting sessions specific to students that will be joining Lakehead with a dependent as well. Like Jen mentioned though, for those parents that are potentially going to bring their school-age children, joining Thunder Bay or Aurelia and enrolling your child in one of our school systems, so whether it's the Catholic board or the public board, and actually having them learn in a Canadian institution will also give them, a good head start on their journey to higher education or graduation. And so we would certainly encourage that. So I'm gonna stop the share here and we'll go to the next slide. It's another poll actually. And this one is in reference to your post-graduation plan. So I'll launch it. I'll give everyone maybe a minute or so to answer. This one goes over what are your extended plans upon graduation. So whether you're in a 16-month program, a 24-month program, a 4-year undergrad, what is your plans after graduation? Of course, you could certainly be undecided. We wouldn't blame you. 4 years out, I didn't know what I wanted to do next summer. I don't even know what I want to do this summer necessarily with vacation time. So I can't blame you if you don't know what you're going to be doing in 4 years' time, but this will give us a better idea about what everyone's plans are. So there's an option to work and live in Canada. You might want to return home to your home country and work there. You might want to travel abroad and secure an international job. You could potentially move on to further studies. So you could go into that next level or do another degree at the same level. And then again, of course, undecided is absolutely fine too. So I will share those results. It looked like work and live in Canada was the most popular one. That's not surprising. We're definitely excited to have you join us here and hopefully stay here for as long as you wish. It looks like a few of you may plan to return to home or continue your studies. I would assume the continued studies might be students that are looking to go from an undergrad to a grad or even potentially a master's to a PhD. And once again, undecided is absolutely fine. Well, thank you again for the participation, folks. I really appreciate it. Next, we're going to move into the full question and answer period. So the Q&A period. We already have plenty of questions. I know Patrick has been typing like a madman behind the scenes, answering questions as well. So thank you, Patrick. Jen, I'll pass it to you for the first one. I know that you marked a question on there about IELTS. And so I'll let you address that and then we'll start working our way through stuff.
Yes, and I meant to mention this within the required documents. So IELTS, an IELTS score is not required for the study visa application. It's actually required for your admission. So if you are admitted unconditionally to Lakehead, there's no need to include any English requirements with your study visa application. Another question I get is students say, do you need your IELTS at the port of entry? And what happens if you took your IELTS 2 years ago? That also does not matter. IRCC does not penalize people for their own slow processing times. So as long as your IELTS was valid when you submitted your application or you were accepted, there's no issue with that. But very common from Nigeria that you don't require IELTS for your admission, so you should be fine.
Awesome. Another question we got here is, if we apply for the visa as a family, in which category will my daughter's visa go through? As a study visa or a temporary resident? She is 6 years old. I don't know, Jen,
So
if you can answer that or if you need more details, but I'll let you take a shot at it.
I definitely would recommend a study permit just because visitor visas are usually issued for such short periods and you have to consistently extend them every 6 months. So because she's 6 years old, she can be enrolled in grade 1 here in Canada. So you definitely may want the study permit and then it could be the same length of time. I do understand it costs $50 more for a study permit than a visa, but it does save you doing multiple applications in the future.
For sure. Just out of curiosity, Jen, if somebody is wishing to bring their child who is in that school age group, 6 years old is a perfect example. If they apply for a visitor visa, will they be eligible to enroll their student while in Thunder Bay or Aurelia?
Yes, so you can still enroll in elementary school with a visitor visa. It's not required to have a study permit until they hit high school. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for clarifying. Another question we have is from Ramin. It says, does your university have a good visa success rate in IRCC? And I think that that's a popular question. It's a fair question. Jen, I'll let you take a shot at it. I know that we don't have any percentages or rates that say exactly what Lakehead gets as an acceptance, but if you could just clarify some more details if you have any.
Yeah, definitely. I know that there's this hidden percentage people think that are applied versus schools, where I know I get the question a lot. Unfortunately, we don't have specific data. It's very privy probably just to the visa application centers across the globe. But definitely Lakehead has a great reputation. We are a DLI. We were one of the first DLIs that were approved for the COVID readiness plans as well. So definitely we have great reputation and great visa approval rates. Where I see refusals for students who are applying is usually around finances or ties to either their home country or Canada. So that's mostly the issues where I see around refusals. I would say not even 1% do I see students get refused because of their study plan or their program of choice with Lakehead.
Awesome. And I assumed as much. So thank you for clarifying, because of course, with those visa applications, it's not immigration necessarily reviewing your study plans and saying, oh, we don't like the program for you, or or we don't know if you're going to do that at Lakehead University. It actually comes back to your personal application. So of course, there's certain expectations that as the applicant you should set yourself. And if you know some of the details that you need to clarify on that application, or if you need to review anything in extra, please take that into consideration when making that application. Jen, I'll pass it back to you. I know that there's a few other questions, or maybe actually, sorry, I'll pass it to Patrick first, who has a few questions answered that he'll do live.
Yeah, just a quick question about submitting official documents to graduate studies. So congratulations on your acceptance. If you need to submit graduate studies, your official documents, there are a variety of ways you can do that. Currently, the traditional way is to send hard copies and have your institution send them directly to Lakehead University, and those instructions are on your offer letter package and on my info. I believe Graduate Studies is also still accepting digital official documents, so long as they are sent directly from a institutional email where you did your undergraduate degree directly to Lakehead University's email. And if you're going to do that, please ensure that they include your application ID number, as well as your legal full name that you used on your application. So that's what they're looking for, is your final documents officially sent from your undergraduate institution. And then a second question, just a quick co-op question. Someone asked, do you have to pay complete term fees during co-op? The answer is no, you don't pay your tuition fees during your co-op program. You do pay a co-op registration fee, which in comparison is quite small. And then if you do subsequent terms of co-op, the fee is reduced from there. So you do not pay your full tuition fees, which is what I think makes co-op such a great option for students, is that not only are you making an industry-based salary, but you are also not paying tuition during that portion of studies. And that's all I flagged for now, Jordan.
If I'm not mistaken, in your initial co-op term, the fee is just over $700 right now, where compared to tuition, of course, that's a significant reduction. And then like Patrick mentioned, any subsequent terms, the fee is further reduced. That fee actually goes directly to our Student Success Center and the team that helps coordinate that co-op. So they facilitate the entire experience and they monitor your experience there. And so that applies directly to their costs and services. But otherwise, it's absolutely a great opportunity for students to, gain valuable work experience within their industry, within their department or their role, but also, earn money that's going to help pay off some of the debt incurred to study, or at least have a little bit of extra spending money for yourself over the coming years or subsequent years of wrapping up your academic degree. Jen, I'll pass it over to you. I see you've marked a few in the queue, and we'll continue to answer questions. Just to note to our audience, we'll be online for about 10 more minutes. I don't know if we'll get through all the questions today. And if we don't get to your question today, I'll apologize in advance, but I'll put now in our chat our main email in which you can reach out to us at. So Jen, I'll pass it to you.
Another little note I wanted to mention about co-op is it's considered a registered semester. So every semester that you take in co-op also counts towards your postgraduate work permit time as well. So just keep it in mind as you're studying. So a couple of questions come in. What happens if my study permit's refused? $1 million question comes in about 15 times a day to my email. So this is why we encourage you to apply as early as possible, so that when the outcome of the study visa application comes, you have more options and potential if there is a refusal. If your study permit is refused, depending on the date that it is refused, you may be able to withdraw from your classes or defer your admission and request a refund. Some students have decided to resubmit their study visa application right away and just continue on in their studies. There are two really cool rules happening with IRCC right now. The first one is that students can start their studies as soon as they submit their application. So if you submit your application over the summer, September comes, you don't have a response, you can continue to take your classes online while you're waiting for that approval. or for the summer is a great example. However, the longer your decision comes in, the less options you're going to have after that. So again, we encourage you to apply as early as possible. The other really cool rule is that as of right now, IRCC allows you to take all your online classes from outside of Canada, and you will still be eligible for your postgraduate work permit. So we continuously see all sorts of updates and resources as well from IRCC. And of course, little webinars like this, we share them with you guys as we get the updates from them. The next one I wanted to talk about from Gurjeet. So when are you eligible for the work permit? So again, when you first come to Canada, you're eligible to work off your study permit off campus. And then once you complete all your program requirements and you're in a graduation position, so you've completed all your courses, they've been graded, you will request your graduation documents and apply for the post-grad work permit. So for example, our students who finished their classes this April will be applying for their work permit in May. Sorry, and that's as far as I got with reading them, sorry.
No worries. A few questions that I had marked, I had scrolled down. It says, hi, can you tell me about the on and off campus jobs at Lakehead University for graduate students? So I'm happy to address that. So on campus jobs both include actually working directly for a department in a variety of roles, but also there's graduate assistantships which are available. And so for graduate students, when you do apply for your program, if you are offered a graduate assistantship, you'll actually learn about that offer in your letter of acceptance to Lakehead University. So you'll know right from the outset of receiving that offer that you'll be a part of that graduate assistantship program. If you aren't a graduate assistantship, or we like to say GAs, that's their short form nickname. If you're not a GA, you can still certainly work while studying, whether it's a job on campus or off campus. There's a variety of different areas our students work in. I've genuinely seen international students work in just about every industry in Thunder Bay, whether they're delivering food through one of the delivery service apps, whether they're working at a restaurant and serving, whether they're working in retail at one of our local shopping centers here. I've seen them all over, but it actually speaks to the variety and the jobs that are available. In most situations, and what I've heard is from our students, is that if they are looking for a job and they're putting the effort into finding that job, they typically have no issues getting a job upon their arrival in Canada. Like Jen mentioned though, until you actually start your studies, so until you've officially started those classes, you won't be able to start that job. So some of you may be considering on coming to Canada earlier this summer and beginning that adventure and exploring. We would love to see that. However, please note you won't be able to actually work during that time frame. Another question that I saw, and this one actually it's for Jen, although I marked it, that if students have done their biometrics within 10 years, then what are the benefits? Is it specifically for Canada or for another country?
So biometric collection is done by their own country. So if you apply to, like for Japan, for example, I had to give biometrics to go to Japan. That does not mean that those biometrics are good for me to go to the United States or any other country. So each country collects their own biometrics. And I often get students confused because they've gone for a US visitor visa where they've done biometrics for the United States. So it is separate. That does not mean that you're exempt. You would still have to do the biometrics for Canada. And biometrics, really a lot of other countries have been doing it for a long time. Canada's just kind of getting on the ball and collecting that. And it's really just to make it easier for entry and exit requirements for people. I would say 10 years ago when you entered Canada, every single time you saw an immigration officer, you had a stamping, you had a little interview. But now more times than ever, when you're returning to Canada, you go through little kiosks. So just the way that our entry is changing. That's why biometrics were entered. But once you've done it, like again, it's good for 10 years. So it's much easier for you guys and you don't have to worry about repeating and doing it again when you apply for the work permit.
Awesome, Jen, I'll leave it with you if there's more questions I see that you've marked, and then we'll pass it between Patrick and myself too.
Okay, yes, I am trying to be mindful of time and answer as many as I can. I will also share my email in the chat with the students. So in visa process, should we have proof that okay, so this is a really good question. So when you apply for the study permit, we often can see refusals that you do not have sufficient ties to your home country. It's kind of a checkbox that immigration likes to use. It's very hard to address that issue. So I often tell students or applicants, you should request your GSCM notes, which actually gives you a huge file on your study permit refusal. And we'll go into the notes from the visa officer saying what was their issue with your ties to community. A good way to overcome this is if you have property, if you have family, if you're leaving a job. So giving a letter from your employer saying he's aware that you're leaving to go to Canada to study and that you are coming back and you have this job when you return. We know that I would say 90% of the students want to stay in Canada and start a new life. This is very common and it's kind of a very interesting argument within immigration all the time. But of course, because you're applying for a temporary study permit, the understanding is that you will leave when your designated stay is over. So those would be my suggestions to you, and also speaking to anyone who works specifically in immigration in your country, as visa offices can make different decisions depending on where they are.
Awesome. Just before you move on to the next one, Jen, I'll note that at this point we'll have to cut the Q&As. So if you've submitted it already, we'll do our best to answer it. Any new ones that we receive rolling in, I don't believe we'll have time to get to it. But like Jen said, or myself even said in the chat, you can send us an email at one of our emails and we'll be happy to address it. Jen, I'll pass back to you to answer a few more questions there.
So there was a few questions around the conditional letter of acceptance. I hope throughout our presentation today, we've clarified that for you, just thinking and being mindful of time and processing. We know in India, we have lots of agencies who work with us and they say the deadline to apply will be this date. Of course, they've been working in this area for many years and they understand how early you should apply to have the approval in time. So please listen to their advice. But if you don't feel like you'll have enough time, of course, you can submit your conditional offer with a letter of explanation, but remember to update that file once you meet your conditions.
Awesome.
I see, sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, Patrick, maybe I'll pass it over to you. I see you've marked a couple there, and then we'll wrap it up with a few more.
Yeah, so the first one is actually just a student who's been accepted and they want to know how they can connect with other classmates. And Jordan, I know that you are a big proponent of our Facebook groups. Has that group launched for the incoming class of 2021?
It has been launched. Yeah, that's a great question. So if you are interested in connecting with fellow future students that are going to be joining us this fall in 2021, so in just about 5-6 months here, if you head over to Facebook and look up Lakehead Life, life spelled L-I-F-E, you can actually find the Facebook group there on their page already launched. I will put a link in the chat in just a moment here. So give me a second to do that. I'll pass back to Patrick.
Awesome. And then Jen, the other question I flagged is just one that I get often when I'm visiting different countries that I work with students from, which is prepaying your tuition before or after applying for your student visa and study permit. And I think the technical answer is no, you do not have to prepay your tuition fees. This rumor, I think, starts from the idea that you need to show proof of finances, and a lot of people think this shows the proof of finances, but correct me if I'm wrong. Is that kind of the general process?
Correct. So you do need to show proof of finance to be approved a study permit, which means you need to show that you have enough funds to pay for 1 year of tuition, along with around $10,000 for living expenses. This does not mean you have to pay Lakehead a full year of tuition. And I do find there's some confusion because there's a stream called the SDS. The SDS is a student direct stream where it's only specific to certain countries. And to apply through that stream, you do have to pay 1 year of tuition. And we don't know what the tuition is in the fall. So please just take your 1 semester, whatever the fees say now, and times it by 3 if you're a master's student, or by 2 terms for an undergraduate student. For SDS, and that's only specifically for that. For other ways of proof of finance, I have seen many different things. So sometimes students will pay some tuition, also show that they've paid their residence fees or they've booked an apartment. They also can show their own land and property from their home country, bank statements, loan statements. So you can combine multiple documents, but make sure that you are meeting their threshold of their 1 year of tuition plus your $10,000 for living expenses. It's also important to note if you're bringing family that you have to have more funds. If you have more family members, it's about $7,000 for each extra person per year.
Awesome. So I have a few more questions that I've marked that we'll answer, and then we'll have to wrap up today's session as we get to that 10 o'clock period here in Thunder Bay. One of the questions said, I submitted a graduate application, and while checking for an update, I was told to send my official proof of degree and official transcript, but there hasn't been an offer of admission. So that's a typical process. Our admissions teams, although they may not have made a decision on your account, they can certainly use in-progress transcripts or unofficial transcripts to potentially offer you that conditional offer letter. However, it's not unlike them to ask for those official documents still, because it will actually save you that time. And if they review those official transcripts from the outset, or that from now on, and they're no longer using those unofficial or in-progress marks, they can potentially provide you with that unconditional offer letter, which is what we know students love the most and what they like applying for their visas with. Another question we had is, did the letter of acceptance for the master's programs, have they all been sent out? It's been 6 weeks. I'm still waiting for fall admissions. And so with master's programs, they're sent out on a rolling basis. What happens is the graduate admissions team will actually collect all of the applications and all the documents required in that, and they'll provide them to the admissions committees within each department or faculty. Those committees will actually decide whether or not what candidates they're going to move forward, what students they're going to provide offers to, and then at that point, of course, you will be updated on your status. So that could be happening right now in your case, or it may take a few more weeks here. It ranges essentially. There's no finite deadline or timeline for those offers to be sent out. One last question that I'm going to pose is, it says, can we get a driver's license with a study permit? And I believe the answer is yes. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jennifer. When students join us here in Canada and they're studying with a study permit and a student visa, are they eligible to get a driver's license?
Yes, and sometimes it's a good idea to bring your driving record from your home country. Be prepared to bring that and your driver's license, as we have equivalency programs. So if you have been a licensed driver in your home country, you might be able to start off and start driving right away. It's a great idea to start the licensing when you come, especially those students in engineering programs, as this will open up more job opportunities for you while you study and then after when you graduate too.
Also, if you do not have a vehicle here in Canada, in Thunder Bay or Aurelia, there are driving schools in both of our cities that have the options to use their vehicles and pay a nominal fee to use them. So that does bring us to the end of today's session. I want to remind everyone to follow us on our social media channels. You can find us at Lakehead International, both on Facebook and Instagram. Head over to our YouTube page, Lakehead University. Today's session will be uploaded as a recording. If you're watching it as a recording, hello, thank you for watching. And I encourage everyone absolutely to take a virtual campus tour. So although you're not able to join us here in Canada quite yet, to check out our campuses, we're not doing campus tours. We have the opportunity to do virtual campus tours. So all you have to do is follow that simple link, lakeheadu.ca/tours, and you can explore our beautiful campuses. And with that being said, I want to thank Jennifer and Patrick for joining. I think today we answered, let's check it out. I'm going to do one last look. We answered over 80 questions today. So thank you for joining me. I wouldn't have been able to do it myself. And thank you to our audience for all the participation with the polls and submitting those questions. It's been great fun. Hopefully we'll see you either this week at our engineering session or next week's session about your next steps in the admission process, where we'll talk a bit about this stuff, but also how to stay connected with us. Alrighty, bye for now, folks. Thank you for checking out today's video. If you have any questions, you can always comment below.
Stay connected and follow us on our social media channels to stay informed about upcoming webinars and get an insider sneak peek of Lakehead University. See you next time.